Welcome to Friday Night Chats with Garage Geek. So this is my COVID coverage part 2. So yesterday I did my first installment where I talked about how I have COVID and how I've been coping with it and what it's been like. And then I talked about a whole bunch of books that I had mostly listened to. So today, the focus is going to be on movies and TV shows. And then this is going to lead up to the regular show, which is going to be tomorrow night, which is mostly going to be a lot of miscellany, dealing with comics and controversial issues and music, that kind of thing. So I just want to kind of update a little bit. So I'm feeling almost better. I have just a cough. But last night, wow, I had an attack where I guess COVID hits your nerves. That's what my friend says. So it's like a nerve agent. And my back was in so much pain. I finally took an ibuprofen 800, and that really helped. I was able to go to sleep. But I was reading in the book the very brief history of the world in 12 pithy chapters, which I talked about in the last episode, that the human back is most likely a maladaptation. So it is an adaptation that was beneficial for the species, but there's so many problems with the human back. We have so many problems that it was probably a maladaptation. And I kind of believe it. There's, so many people have so many problems with their back issues, that it's weird to think that might be an adaptation that we still need to work on for a couple, 100,000 years to get it right. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the movies. I got a list. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is a Netflix movie starring Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Mads Mikkelsen is such a phenomenally great actor. I'm a big fan of his, and I loved him in Hannibal. I think that's one of the best shows ever. Anyways, he took Hannibal Lecter and he made him his own. I mean, that's how strong an actor he is. And, it's hard to hold a candle to the original, right? But he did it somehow, and he made the character his own. That was a stunning achievement. But anyways, this movie has nothing to do with Hannibal Lecter. This isn't Hannibal Lecter on ice. So, my dog is coming. Okay, come on, hurry up. So, this is about a man who is stranded in the Arctic and he needs to survive. And so it's a short movie. It's on Netflix. And it's an hour and a half, basically, of you trying to see if this man is going to live or die. And, all the obstacles that he has to face. And wow, by the end of this movie, you are like really on the edge of your seat rooting. Like, is he going to make it? You're like really rooting for him. It's a really intense and good movie. And I think it's because of Mads Mikkelsen. He's such a good actor. He can carry it off, and he really makes you care for his survival. So this is definitely for me a highly, highly recommended movie. If you're a fan of action, I'm not even sure if you're a fan of survival movies, you definitely need to watch this. If you're a fan of really good acting, you should watch this movie. I'm not going to say it's the best movie ever made, not by far, but it's a really solid movie and thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable. It had me going right to the end. Next, I just want to say that, for all modern movies and TV shows, I won't spoil anything. The older movies and like the B movies I'm going to talk about, I'm totally going to spoil them. So I don't want to have to keep repeating that every time. So for example, I'm going to talk about The Walking Dead, but I won't give any spoilers. So I finally finished we can go ahead and look at all the characters involved in the finale. So I finally finished The Walking Dead. TV show, and I wasn't disappointed. It did rely on some kind of like emotional pulling of your emotions. What do you call that? Pulling on the strings, whatever, heartstrings of your whatever. I thought it was really good. Remember, it had 24 episodes, I think, so there was bound to be a little bit of filler in all of that. But overall, I thought it was solid, and I enjoyed it all the way up to the end. I mean, I don't want to give it away. I'm not going to say it's like it was the best show I've ever seen, but I think it was a very solid ending to a very, very good, solid show all the way through. I still cared about the characters, and I look forward to anything that they're going to do in the future, because I think there's going to be some one-offs or movies, or excuse me, or something like that. So there you go. The final episodes of The Walking Dead. Now I have to pull out my comic, and I have to finish that last volume, which is going to be sad. Okay, after The Walking Dead, we get to Reptilicus. I'm already laughing. Okay, so there's a little bit of a story behind Reptilicus. As many of you probably know, I did a challenge with This Is Music about and I listened to Danish pop music, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And one of the songs had some singing sailors, and I was like, I need more of this, please. And This Is Music kindly sent me a list of movies in my by email, and I watched 2 of them so far, and I'm going to talk about both of them. But the first one is called Reptilicus, and he was warning me. He was like, this is a super B movie. It is, oh gosh, Denmark's. I don't want to get this wrong. It was Denmark's kaiju, one and only kaiju movie, right? And it's known for its like legendary as its like super B movie status. And this movie is so much fun. It deserves its cult status. I had such a great time watching this, such a great time making fun of it. Then afterwards, I was researching it. I was talking about it with my friend. There's like multiple versions of the movie. For example, the original, I guess 2 versions of this film were filmed at the same time, and they were kind of spliced for the international version. But the original Danish version has, for example, scenes that aren't in the I would guess the Hollywood version, if you want to call it that. For example, there's a scene of Reptilicus flying that isn't in the version that I saw. Now, I saw a version where they were speaking English, so you would say that's dubbed, right? So I really wanted to see the Danish version with English subtitles, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. I was lucky to get what I got. So there's even a version, an episode of Mystery Science Theater that they go over this movie. I'd love to see that. But anyways, Reptilicus. These people who are drilling in an oil rig, they drill down and they find basically a tail of a creature, and so they take it back to a lab, and they grow the tail, and but they don't realize, but like from that one little piece, a whole monster could come from it, and then it breaks out, and it's really just like a silly monster movie premise, right? But what's funny about it is, like any B movie, like they pad it out, so there's like this whole section of the movie where it's just talk. They go on, there's like this one 15-minute scene where all they do is we go sightseeing in Copenhagen like this. They take us to all the major sites. Now, what's really interesting about this is this movie is from 1967, so that must be like snapshot into what the city must have looked like at the time. And if you live there now, I think that would be fascinating to watch, right? Because you'd be, getting a window into the past. But anyways, we go on this whole tour of Copenhagen. We go to all the spots and blah blah blah, talking. And then finally Reptilicus comes and, does his mayhem. But it's such a I have to show you a couple of scenes. Now I'm probably going to get in trouble, but I want to here, I'm going to show you this. There is a job interview, and I thought this was just such the horrible feminist, really awful, what do you call it? It was just such an awkward interview, and I felt bad for the woman. Let's watch.
We are not accustomed to see such a beautiful woman connected with science.
I assure you, Professor Martins, I'm quite capable in my field.
No insult, Miss Miller, no insult. As an old man, I feel free to accept duty without apology.
I guess I'm a little sensitive, Professor.
What a creepy, awkward interview. I was rolling when I watched that. I was like, the poor woman is interviewing under those conditions. And then we're going to watch one scene. Like, this is an example of, I think, one of the most brilliant scenes I've ever seen in a movie. You've got to watch this. The way Reptilicus swallows the farmer is pretty funny, and you never forget that farmer has like stripes on. So I took a still shot of that, if I can find it. Yeah, like it's hard to see, but there he is going into Reptilicus's mouth. It looks like it was like painted on there, or I don't know how they got that farmer to slide down Reptilicus's throat. But that has to be like the best film scene I've seen in a long time. That was making me laugh so hard. So, Reptilicus is an absolute must-watch. You have to watch it. If you want, you could watch like the first 10 minutes and then skip into like 30 minutes later and then just watch the end. And Reptilicus does all kinds of weird things, like he spits this green slime that nobody notices, and then later when I was reading it, they added it to the American version, I guess, after they filmed everything. They just added it in to make the film more interesting. So that's why nobody in the film reacts to it, because it was just added in afterwards. So this is music. Thank you. That was a winner. That's a 5-star. You have to watch that movie. Okay, so the next movie I watched, oh yeah, I did. Oh wait, here's a couple more posters for Reptilicus. Okay, so the next one I watched was from This Is Music's list as well, and it was called SS Martha. So I didn't know anything about this movie, right? I just went into it blind, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed this movie. So this is one of those like bumbling naval ship pictures. Like, the crew of the ship, they're inadequate, whatever. I've seen so many of those movies. It seems to be like a genre. So I wasn't expecting much, but wow, this was a really, really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was funny. I'm not going to say again, it's the best movie I've ever seen, but the characters were endearing. The comedy was funny. The situations were interesting. It kept me going. I mean, by the end, I'd had enough, right? But it was still a very enjoyable movie throughout. So, what's interesting about a lot of these movies is that they're available on YouTube for free. There is, I'll try to put a link in the description. But there was a person out there who is posting all these movies, and they do have like cuts in YouTube, so commercials, whatever. But you can see the whole movie, and there's so many of them, so many of these great older B movies like Reptilicus and this one, and a bunch of the other movies that I'm going to talk about. And so, like I said, I'll try to put a link to that person in the description. But yeah, these movies are available on YouTube, and so I'm very grateful for that. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to see every movie. Sorry about that. Every movie on the list that that This Is Music sent to me. Okay, so we talked about Arctic. Okay, we talked about Walking Dead. I kind of went backwards. Reptilicus. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about was a sci-fi movie. I just randomly saw it, and it was posted by the same person on YouTube, and it was called Beyond the Time Barrier. Now, this is was an Edward G. Ulmer, and I guess he has a cult following. So this movie was actually, I mean, it's a B movie through and through, but it was actually kind of interesting. So this pilot, here he is, this pilot, he goes in a ship and he does something weird and he ends up going to the future. Now, what's interesting about this movie is the set design. They build the set around a lot of pyramids, and it seems like they're in this like really big kind of factory or warehouse, and they built the whole set in there. And like I said, a lot of the design elements were based on pyramids and triangles, and it was pretty interesting. So for a B movie, it had a pretty nice set. And let's see, what else can I say about this? I mean, it's typical B movie fare. They go to the future, and then he's trying to get back to his time to stop what happens in the future. And there's like all these mutant people, and then even the people of that time. It's weird because a couple, excuse me, a couple of them can talk, but most of them are deaf and mute. But they have telekinetic powers. It's kind of weird. It wasn't consistent, but that doesn't stop you from enjoying the movie. And then he meets a group of people from other times that are stranded there, and he's got to deal with them. And overall, it was a very, very enjoyable B movie. I recommend this one. It could almost not be B movie status. It could actually be a little bit more serious. But I don't know. I'd never heard of this one before. So anyways, that was Beyond the Time Barrier. The next one that I watched was Raya and the Last Dragon. Now, this one, I believe, is nominated, or like the Oscars are already done, but was nominated, and I don't know if it won or not. I had started watching this one a long time ago, and I really liked it, but my husband fell asleep, and then so I turned it off, and then I just never went back to it. And I'd always wanted to, because it was beautiful. And so we only had watched like the first 20 minutes. So now I was able to watch, we both watched the entire thing, and we both loved it. It's a really, really beautiful movie. The story is great. The animation is great. The characters are really good. Everything leads up to a really satisfying ending. It's a very well done movie, and the stars in it, their voices, so many of them. So I'm going to say, if you're into animation, this is definitely a must-watch. Raya and the Last Dragon. Okay, we watched, so remember, there won't be any spoilers. We watched the finale of The Last of Us. And I really, really, really liked it. But my friend, she thought it went back too much to its video game roots, and that the writing wasn't as strong as in the initial couple episodes. I I understand her points, but I still really enjoyed it. So it'd be interesting to know what you think of the final episodes or the series overall. I thought it was very sorry, keep coughing. I thought it was very enjoyable throughout. It had a couple dips, but otherwise, I thought it was very strong, and I really liked the ending, or even the last episode. So right after The Last of Us, my husband picked this movie, Valley of the Dead. Now this is a Spanish movie that is basically a modern B movie, right? So it takes place in Spain during World War II. So it's basically Nazis, zombies, and Nazis. So these Nazis cut off a whole valley, and they go in and kill everyone in the valley, and they throw this mist on them, and the mist makes them come to life. And so these people are, most of them are counter, they're revolutionaries, and so they're stuck in that valley, and a couple of them are part of the what do you call that? They're not Nazis, but they're I guess it's Franco's government. I'm drawing a blank, but anyways, they're on the side of the Nazis, and then they have to work together because they're enemies, but they meet in this valley, and they realize that they're going to have to join together to stop the zombie onslaught and figure out what's going on so it doesn't spread to the rest of the world. It was actually really enjoyable, right? It's totally a forgettable movie, but I enjoyed it. It's basically, Nazis and zombies, and like, that's what you're gonna get. If that's the kind of movie you like, then you're gonna like this movie, Nazis and zombies. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. I would say like 3 out of 5. All right. Definitely a kind of fun, popcorny kind of thing. All right. Then, excuse me. I watched Luther, The Fallen Son. So I actually haven't seen the series Luther, but I went ahead and watched this movie because my husband put it on. He wanted to watch it, and then he promptly fell asleep. This is exactly the kind of movie that he doesn't like, a police procedural, but it was number 1 on Netflix, so he put it on. And so it's a police procedural, and it's got some things that, aren't believable. I'm not going to spoil it, but overall, it's a vehicle for the actor. And although it tells an interesting story that I don't think they do that part of the story justice. We're talking about a ring of like serial killers. Overall, it's a very good movie if you focus on the acting. And it's got the amazing Idris Elba in the title role. And then it's got Andy Serkis and Cynthia Erivo. Now, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, and I loved her. The first thing I saw her in was a Stephen King adaptation where she plays, I don't know if autistic is the right word, but she plays a detective who has some kind of autism, and it gives her insight into serial killers, right? Because she's able to pick up on details that other people miss. She was so good in that role. I forget what was the name of that. It was an HBO show. Can't remember the name of it. Anyways, ever since then, I've seen her in a couple other things, and I'm really interested in her because she's a really good actress. And so she was in this, very good. And of course, Andy Serkis is interesting. He's played, a lot of like creatures, like Gollum, and I think, yeah, he's done he also played, I think, Caesar. Didn't he play Caesar in the Planet of the Apes series? So in this, he's not in any kind of CGI getup. So he's a character in the movie. So overall, it's an interesting movie. I would say of all the movies on this list, maybe this one is the least one that you need to watch. I watched it more because I like Idris Elba, and he didn't disappoint. He was very good in the movie. I mean, he's just cool. He's cool to watch. All right, after that, we're getting near the end. I think this one might be the last one. Yeah. So someone at work quoted The Princess Bride to me, and I was like, huh? Because I've never seen it. Now, I'm not big on comedies and romance and romantic comedies. And so I know how classic this movie is, and I know what a cult following it has. So we went ahead and watched it. So we went ahead and watched The Princess Bride, and it was a really nice, enjoyable movie. From beginning to end, it deserves its status. I'm still not going to say it's like, now is it a cult movie for me? No, it was enjoyable. It's just not my cup of tea. I knew that. And so when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this isn't really something that I would fawn over like so many people do. But it was very enjoyable, and I'm glad I finally watched it. If you're a fan of The Princess Bride, like a big fan, please let me know in the comments. That's always interesting. Now, I'm in the middle of 2 shows, Lizzie's Story on Apple TV and also Cabinet of Curiosities. So I think by next week, I'll have those finished and I'll be able to talk about them more. So what am I going to talk about tomorrow? Again, I'm going to be talking about a couple of controversial topics, a couple of comic books. One of them is in a really large format, so it's really going to be nice to see that art. Some music that I currently am listening to and bought. I'm also going to, excuse me, I'm going to cough again. And I'm going to try to talk about Topol and Kenzaburo Oe, both people that we lost recently, famous people. So there you have it. Wow, I came in early, only 27 minutes. So I want to thank you for watching. Please make any comments to any of the movies. Which ones do you think are interesting? Which ones have you seen? Blah, blah, blah. I look forward to reading your comments, and stay tuned tomorrow for part 3, where we get back on track with our Friday night chats.